welcome. Yeah, we're starting just in a few seconds, so let's get started. So cool, we are starting right now. I hope that, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the session. And it's one of the sessions that I have looked forward to for a long time. The idea is obviously to cover a little about some of the different features we have added over the last year, about making it easier for you to manage your SAP based integration, PI, PO, or cloud integration. And I think that is obviously some interesting aspects of this. I hope you just want to say hi, so I know you're here. It would appreciate that, and also a little about what are the topics you're most interested in, so I can cover those in more details. Is it migration? Is it PI or DevOps on PIPO, or DevOps on integration suite? Those type of questions that makes most sense for you. But yeah, thanks for joining. I hope this is going to be an interesting session. Let me know, yeah, what area you think is most interesting for you, and then let's cover that in a little more detail. So let's get started. I think this is, hopefully this is going to be fun. So let me just see here, it is this section, yes. So today we published a blog post, and I was writing on this last week, and it was actually really interesting to go through a lot of all of these different things. So there's a blog post here. I can put it into the chat so you can see that. So that's the blog post that we will cover in more details here, and that is, yeah, we can obviously go through and read all of these things, but we'll take the top highlights of these things. And yeah, if you write more on DevOps or CPI or migration, we'll cover those more details. But the basis of this was I was going through all of these different, all our change lists, all our releases, and checking out what we actually had released. And I think if I went back 3 years ago, I had not expected that we would be able to deliver something like this. So it's been really cool process to go through. Obviously, yeah, we had like 22 releases and patches, and almost every week or almost every month we had a new release, as you will see as we get along with this one. We have a lot of features for improvement of the PI. Of the transports of all integration objects. I think we'll come a little more into details on this, and I think one of the big things we actually achieved also was we created the Figaf tool to enable you to use a number of our advanced PIPO features. I'm not sure if that is going to be one of the bigger aspects of this, but obviously I think that a lot of customers will still be using PIPO for the next foreseeable future, and if you are that, there is a number of features that makes it easier for you to transport and govern your SAP integration, give you the governance that you need, give you the opportunities to document what is going on. Okay, we start out with in January with creating a BTP release that allows you to actually deploy on BTP, and I think this is really a cool feature because almost all PI customers or CPI customers will have some cloud credits that they can use to manage some of these different aspects, and that means that you don't need to go through whoever the cloud departments to get a server, which sometimes can be a little challenging. It is also a bit challenging with Cloud Foundry. You need to have the entitlements to be able to provision a CPI system. You need to, or a Cloud Foundry runtime. You need to have the ability to provision these things. But we got this working. I think this really simplifies a lot of the processes. we got rollback implemented. That means that for CPI processes, we later got it for PI also. That means that if you have imported something on the productive system, it fails, you can just press rollback and you will roll back to the state just before. And this really simplifies a lot of the error handling that you would be going through when you're dealing with these things. In February, we had the ability to add these Figaf tickets and Jira ticket, which gave you a lot more details about who had made which changes to an integration. And obviously also if you saw a productive change that had been done by some user without these data, you know that someone had not followed proper change management procedures. Yeah, and obviously we added PO to make connections using the cloud connector to this process, making it possible to do migrations. So yeah, if you're just joining, I'm just going through some of the different highlights that I found that is making the life easier for SAP PI developers. And I think this, yeah, if you have questions, comments, things you want to learn a little more about, do sign up. Thanks for joining and thanks for your comments. Ashif. So yes, do post your comments, questions. We'll try to cover these. In March, we created our free PIPO. I had these courses for a long time, and it used to be like $100 dollars for these courses, but right there we set them as free courses, so you can just sign up and view them. They also on YouTube, and yeah, creating courses is something that is really time consuming, and if you want to do that, you want to spend much more time on it. And we just felt that it was better spent focusing on making the development experience better than working on courses and training and making it easier for customers to train on these things. One of the things we also added was in the CPI, or if you had a CPI iFlow, that if you want to create documentation of it, and let me just show you this. So if we have an iFlow here on our CPI system, see how it works. So we have an iFlow here. I have no idea what this has been doing. Let's see, probably it will be a good one. We can go in here, we can create this scenario documentation. Obviously you want to always do something, you know what's going on, but the idea here is that we now get a schema of what's going on here, so we know who has made this thing. We can see what are the APIs assigned to this. We have the test cases we created for, we have a text description of the flow here. What are the different configurations that we have for this? And lastly, what are the different resources included in this one? So this just is a report that gives you a lot of ability to understand what is going on in your landscape. And yeah, our clear vision about making it easier for developers to focus on the things that they enjoy and not spending time on all the governance part that you are supposed to be doing, but if you can automate that just simplifies your life quite a bit. So in April we started out creating an overview of the migration capabilities. So obviously we found that there was a lot of things with migrations that you needed to deal with, and previously we just had, like, you went in on a specific item flow, specified it was this iFlow, it was this package, this is this iFlow name that we want to use, and then you could click here, get a preview of it, and then migrate it. With this latest release, or with this update, we got this overview feature here. Let me just show you here, and I think this really simplifies the process are doing migration project, because now you can see, okay, I have all of these iFlows in my systems. I have this iFlow that has been migrated to this specific iFlow, and I can even see the one that is in production. So this just gives you a lot more capability to understand what is going on with your migrations. And this is also one of the features that you will get in our free integration, free migration edition that you can sign up for on the Figaf website. Yeah, I think the overview here is really useful. You can see what you've migrated, and this is the starting point whenever doing migrations. You can just go through here, dealing with these different things and see what you have test cases for, etc. So there's been a number of improvements for this. We also added the capability to do composite landscape. So in our original PI world, we just had a fixed landscape that you created from dev queue to production. But that was, well, it worked, but we did not really have the flexibility if you wanted to do some splitting, or if you wanted to have different capabilities to handle flows, then it became a little of a challenge. And what we did was we created this composite landscape where you could go in and you could say, let me just take the one here that is pre-delivered, that you can say we have these two systems in our landscape, we can rename them according to this. You can specify out, do we want to deploy after we transport here? Do we have a specific approver for this transition? So if you had multiple, you would see multiple up here. And you can then set up what are the different naming techniques that we want to use when we're transporting between these ones. And we have option to set naming here. We can set up different criteria. If you want to exclude items created with a specific tag, then these would also be excluded here. And then we added, I guess later, also webhooks. So if you want to see who have made change to imports, you can trigger something that will then allow you to see these things. And yeah, if you have questions, comments, just put them into the chat. Something you want to see more out of, let me know. So yeah, that was a pretty cool feature also. And yeah, you can have different approvers in what's going on. And we are on May now. In May, we improved the mocked feature. So whenever we are testing iFlows, we would, and if you have, for instance, success factors, create employee service, if you continuously call that, it will just say, hey, this employee already exists. We cannot really do anything with it. With this new feature, we have the mock, and this would allow you to actually, instead of calling the real system, it will call the Figaf system, and there you will be able to see the specific data that is needed. And this simplifies the mocking of these scenarios. And we here, originally we just had request reply, now we have all the different endpoints that we can see and will get data from. Oh yeah, we also got this overview report, and I really like this. So if you have a landscape, let's just say we have this one I've been using, we can see what are the different objects that we have in this landscape. And if we want, we can also see, are there anything that is different in the productive system compared to the development system. So we probably need to select one of these. Here we can select this, so we can see this has version 2. It is not in QA, on this QA, and if we look out, there's a scroller here. I'm not sure. I think I got to resize my screen. Here we can see that it is version 3. I would say that this is something you probably don't want in your productive system. We can go in and we can compare some of the different iFlows and see what is the difference between these ones. So we can see there was some difference here in this specific mapping. Something that was removed here between these two versions. So this just gives you a lot better understanding of who have made changes in your landscape and what they're up to and what they expect from these things. And you can export it to CSV, so you can also leverage that in other features and see what's going on. For our PI to CPI, we added XSLT and Java mappings. XSLT is obviously pretty easy because you can just use the data there. For Java, we just create an empty shell that you need to implement yourself. We have considered the other thing, but I think, or to change the code, but anyway, you probably need to re-implement some of these features, and if we just decompile it or add a wrapper around it, you anyway a lot of different work. I may be proven wrong. In June, we added the help support for CPI helper. That means that if you are in CPI and you want to check the different systems, this allows you to create a test case from CPI helper with just a click. You can go from and synchronize in the Figaf tool and create transport. So making it a lot easier for you to manage these interactions that is going on here. Other questions? Don't just put them in. So yeah, I'm trying to cover some of the cool features that we have added to make your life easier as an integration developer. In July, we also added the capability to really make it easier for you to get started using the Figaf tool. Our goal was that you, in 10 minutes, you would be able to actually create a transport and run it on your system. And you just needed to connect to one CPI system, and then you could actually get started with it. And I think that is possible. It is not too complicated. We have added some guides. We have added, removed a lot of the different steps that you needed to go through to set this up. So it is just about going into one of the sign up pages, sign up for our cloud trial, and then you're good to go. You just connect it to the CPI system, and then you can run it. We had the ability to have multiple imports in one, so you did not need to wait until a transport has been imported to import the next one. Just something that saved some time. Oh yeah, this one is also good. So yeah, so on this iFlow viewer, we have a monitor capability here, and there, CPI message monitor. Our idea here was that we wanted to create a simple way for you to show what is going on the system, who has accessed which iFlows, what is going on here. So with this one, we can see the different messages that's being processed. We can export all of this data. So we can see, okay, who has actually processed these things, what's going on here. Export to CSV, you get all of this data in a CSV file, including the custom properties. So the business can actually go and analyze these things themselves to see, okay, did we send or receive all the orders? Obviously, it requires that you send it as application ID or some other way that identifies which messages that you had. We also added the ability to use data store besides the MPL attachment and persist messages. So now you can run all of these, you can give the access to the business user to see what is going on. And if you have questions along the way, just put them into the chat. I would love to answer your questions and focus this more on what you're looking for and what suits you. Then we started out with our PO assessment tooling, and I think this is one of the things that we will be doing. Well, I think a lot of these things would anyway be doing a lot more on in the coming years. In the coming year, this assessment tooling is a part of our migration efforts. And what you go in, you simply just press generate report, and it takes a few seconds. And once you've done that, you will get a report that looks like this, where you can see what are the expected payload types, systems involved, modules, operation mappings. Are there any what are the different mappings used in it? What are the different function libraries? Are there any challenges with it? So we have external parameters, and we have an RFC also that we showcase, so you can actually see are there RFCs in this one, making it a little easier for you to estimate it. And then we have receivers, and we have a number of messages that has been processed on this integration, so you have an idea about what is actually active on my system. This is the latest version of it, so we have been improving it over time based on feedback, and what we found was the best way to give you these data. Cool, yeah, so we're still going through the best features in my book on the 2022, giving you some of the ideas what's going on. In August it was a small release. I guess anyway there was quite a number of different improvements in it. In September we made improvements to the migration. So we had a customer that was using the tool to test PI to CPI migrations, and based on that, their input, we found ways to improve the way we are creating test cases, making it easier for everybody to create these test cases. And I think that is one of the key aspects of here, that we want to make it, if you're creating a test case to migrate, you want to make it as smooth and simple as possible. And this here we started out with some improvements, and I think also in the next releases we will also have something, because we want to make it that simple that if you want to create a test case, this is how you do it, and then let all the tool do all the heavy lifting about deciding what to do and how to run with these scenarios. We also added the webhook, so if you import a transport, it will trigger a webhook that you can send to somewhere. In our October release, we also had improved the transport overview. We added, so one of the things is we're using both to connect to API or to CPI, we're using both the public APIs if they exist and if they're useful, but in some cases we're also using the private APIs. So these are the APIs that you would see in the web app, and we are considering obviously to move away from that, but at the moment it is not possible. There's something that holds us up, so we still need to be using these scenarios. We added our custom IDP that allows us actually to sign in even after the single sign-on, and SAP's single sign-on, a universal ID, which was a requirement we had. Yes. Oh yeah, transport overview here. If you're doing a transport of multiple PI or CPI objects, you can actually just create an export that will show you all of the different communication channels, what are the different parameters that you have in one Excel sheet, so you just can go through this filtered in different ways, and thereby go in and say, okay, these are the parameters I need to change, either change them globally and go in and change it on the fly for specific cases. There is also an overview if you're doing a PI change, what is the impact of this object? Will it make a new ICO, and what will this ICO look like when you're doing this? So it does simulate the PI transport. We got a naming convention, so this was a pretty big release. So you can upload your naming convention in a CSV format, and then it will check, does these objects follow this naming convention, and if they do, you're happy. If not, you will obviously need to go through and find what is going on here. In November we released the migration edition, and I think that, well, obviously is a huge thing. I'll just put it into the chat if I can do that. Where you can sign up and get the Figaf tool for free to test your migration, and here you can see you're getting the assessment, the overview, and all of these different things, just to make it a lot easier for you to manage the migration. And then lastly, in December, we added our Neo to Cloud Foundry migration capability, and here we're leveraging our DevOps capability to manage what is going on and what is being sent here. And yeah, this is also a pretty cool feature. So if you're transporting from Neo to Cloud Foundry, or Integration Suite, you can rename the updates so they match your new naming convention. So if you have any problems with it, it is easy to go in and say, okay, these are the problems, this is what is going on, and this is how we can see these data. Yeah, so that was a pretty cool one. We added a guide also to guide you to set up our new CPI or cloud integration agents in a newer way, and we improved the assessment, so now you also can see the RFC lookups. All of these extra features that is a little challenging. There's some other features that we are going to be looking at shortly. So one of the things that I think we will be working on is the PI to Integration Suite migration, making it easier to do the migration. And I think that is, I guess, something I probably have said quite a number of times, to make the process easier, make everybody more productive and focus on the things that matters. There's some improvements in that field. We have an overview of the ticket, so you can see if you're creating this transport from dev, when was it moved into production, giving you more insight about who has made which changes and how they're happening. We also talked about PI test cases. We want to make it easier because we see that all the 10,000 SAP customers need to migrate, and if we can save some time on that, it would really help a lot. And yeah, the migration capabilities, we want to create some much more enterprise ready iFlows, make that process smoother, simplify some of the different things that we can see. Okay, here is a small feature. So one of the last releases, we added the ability to handle function lookups that had Groovy embedded into them. In Groovy, if you're using quotes with a star inside of it or a $sign, it creates a problem, and you need to escape that. We'd added that capability because as a PI developer, you probably are not the best Groovy developer, and if they ran into problems like that, it will be difficult to investigate and figure out what is going on. We want to be more clear on the different editions, what they are, make it easier for customers to understand the portfolio that we have. Make some global thing about making the global process easier to use, embedded better into your processes. So that was like a half an hour of me talking about some of the cool things that I think we have done over the last year. If you have questions, comments, something you think we need to add to the roadmap, do please just add them to a comment or send me a note on what you think could be useful way to simplify your life as an integration architect, developer, and what is going on. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you saw some of the features we added. Obviously, the tool is a lot different this year than last year. I think we're a lot more ready for large scale adoption. There's just a lot of all of these smaller features that makes the life easier of you whenever you're doing some of these main projects. So yes, I hope you liked it. Feel free to drop me a note. If you have comments, questions, just put them into the chat, and I would appreciate that. Or yeah, drop me a note. That should be okay. So thanks for joining.